Early dawn over the Caribbean, a $3 billion US. Navy nuclear attack submarine suddenly surfaced less than 2 nautical miles from Venezuela's patrol line. This was not an attack. It was a message, a silent reminder of absolute power in one of the Western Hemisphere's most contested seas. Within seconds, the Venezuelan patrol ship was forced to respond. No shots were fired, yet the military world shuddered. This is how modern warfare can unfold silently, precisely, and by design. The U.S. Virginia-class submarine proved that merely appearing can shift the balance of power across a region. Collect data, then vanish before any radar can properly react. In this video, you will see how a single submarine can change a nation's strategic posture in minutes, neutralize radars, blind sonars, and penetrate a no-go zone. From acoustic warfare to naval intelligence, this lesson shows how silence can sometimes be the most powerful weapon of the era. Watch to the end to uncover Operation Silent Depth's power beneath the waves. A $3 billion block of steel rose up just 1.9 nautical miles from Venezuela's patrol line, tearing the Caribbean silence apart. Dawn was flat and glassy. Who controls the surface when the real power is beneath the waves? The United States chose to reveal itself rather than remain hidden. It surfaced at the precise moment and location. The Venezuelan deck scrambled. The rules beneath the waves have changed. What message was really sent by that surfacing? No alarm, no sonar ping, only a dark shape materialized like a specter. In the southern Caribbean patrol area, the horizon was still hazy. A single mistake could cost lives and sovereignty. This was no accident. It was a deliberate act of presence. Confront or restrain. Keep your finger off the trigger. Surface order faltered. Control shifted down to the depths. If it were you, what would you do? U.S. Forces massed across the southern Caribbean, warping the map of power. Here, crime, politics, and force intertwine. The maritime lifelines civilians rely on are fragile. How far does deterrence go before it becomes escalation? Use quiet presence instead of exploding rounds. Silently deploy sensor layers and platforms. The adversary is placed under a microscope. The region's future is being recalibrated. What is being tested? A lone submarine is enough to bend the balance of deterrence. Beneath thermal layers, noise dissolves into the ocean's background. Gather intelligence or accept the risk of touching off a fight. Push the boundary up to the brink, but do not cross it. Perform a visible demonstration of presence, then silently measure the reaction. Venezuela's control panel lit up with alarms. Silence became a declaration of power. Will the next step be data or fire? The Virginia machine dives with heavyweight torpedoes and long-range missiles. But its strongest weapon right now is data. In a cluttered acoustic environment, anechoic coatings soak up sound and propeller designs reduce cavitation. Targets are only visible once they've been locked. Shoot first or watch first. They chose to watch. Scan the acoustic scene, mark thermal layers, record electronic fingerprints. The adversary's reaction log fills up. Whoever sees first will set the tempo of escalation. Do you dare look to the bottom of the sea? When it surfaced, the vessel carried the power to strike hundreds of miles inland, yet remained invisible. Meanwhile, on the surface, Venezuela's Guapiro-class patrol ship stood ready with its 76mm cannon, fire control radar, and Chinese-made C-802A anti-ship missiles. Impressive range, yes, but limited by sight. They could only fight what they could see. The enemy below, however, never shows itself. That imbalance created an enormous gap in power. The American submarine could strike first, then disappear as if it never existed. Venezuela, on the other hand, would only react when it was already too late. If the radar detected the missile in time, if the crew had seconds to push the launch button, if luck ever so rare chose their side, but luck seldom smiles on the hunted. Imagine if tension turned into real conflict, a single press of a button. A Tomahawk missile would launch in silence, skimming across the waves before plunging deep into Venezuelan waters. The Guapiro's command center wiped out in seconds. Crisis ignited. Venezuela fires back with a C-802A, but the U.S. submarine's electronic warfare suite shatters the signal, cutting hit probability to barely 15%. A flash war ending before it even begins. This is no longer the age of cannons and broadsides. This is warfare in darkness fought with signals and data. One side sees and acts first, the other never even realizes it's being targeted. Beneath the ocean, silence is the only language and the most terrifying weapon. When that first sonar ping echoes, the balance of power is forever reversed. Night falls over the Caribbean. The $3 billion American submarine slides quietly into firing position. Its hull is coated in anechoic tiles. Its nuclear reactor hums like a heartbeat. Above, Venezuelan patrol ships move routinely, unaware that a predator lurks directly beneath them. On board the vessel, every auxiliary system shuts down, only the sound of breathing and the rhythm of the waves remain. They enter silent running and begin to listen. Every whisper of the sea is captured, from the song of whales to the hum of the seabed to the faint propeller beats of enemy ships. Everything becomes background noise. The crew waits for one thing only: reaction. On the surface, Venezuela's patrol ship continues scanning, logging data, exchanging routine transmissions. None of them realize that below, a dark shape glides patiently along a deadly arc, observing their every move like a hunter stalking its prey. The Venezuelan sonar reports total silence, a reading that seems normal, but is the most dangerous of all. That silence hides an adversary recording every frequency, every vibration. Inside the U.S. control room, analysts monitor live feeds, each shipped in acoustic tone. Every echo from the Guapiro's hull. The data reveals more than position. It exposes how the opponent thinks, reacts, and fears. Inside U.S. systems, all information is encrypted and sent to Florida. There, at U.S. Southern Command, officers watch in real time. Sonar maps, radar frequencies, reaction timelines, all meticulously logged. Meanwhile, on the surface, Venezuela believes it's conducting a peaceful patrol. They have no idea that every radar sweep, every engine pulse, every maneuver has become part of their adversary's database. The $3 billion machine remains in total stealth. No light, no chatter, no trace. Only sensors sweeping the abyss. Its mission isn't to fire, it's to observe, record, and understand. There is no need to wage war to win. Simply existing beneath the waves is already a statement of dominance. Then the signal goes out. Encrypted packets containing Venezuela's full reaction profile are transmitted directly to the USS Tripoli, the forward command ship. From there, the information integrates into a broader intelligence web. No order to fire, no sound of battle, just silence, patience, and withdrawal. The deep-sea audit is complete. Venezuela has been comprehensively assessed without ever realizing it was under evaluation. The mission's goal wasn't to attack, it was to measure. The U.S. wanted answers. How long would it take Venezuela to detect the threat? Who would issue the first command? How many radar rotations before an alarm sounded? Every variable was recorded and sent straight to Florida. On the surface, the Guapiro continued its patrol, still believing everything was calm. They didn't realize that calm was the very test they had just failed. The Virginia-class sub glided deeper, breaking away from acoustic clutter, and disappeared into the ocean's shadow. No light, no signal, no trace. The crew had completed their mission not with weapons, but with presence. In modern naval warfare, victory doesn't belong to the one who fires first, but to the one who vanishes before being seen. That night, the Caribbean belonged to them. As all data streamed into Florida, the command screens lit up with Venezuela's radar waveforms, every delay, scan angle, and tactical reaction mapped in detail. They had exposed their entire combat protocol without firing a single round. Deep below, the $3 billion submarine quietly adjusted course, leaving hostile waters. Above, the sea fell still again, but now, that stillness carried the scent of defeat. Suddenly, the deck of the Guapiro shuddered. A dark mass rose from the horizon, the Virginia, 1.9 nautical miles. A lethal distance. Sirens blared, red lights flashed, alarms screamed. An unidentified object had entered national waters. Wind whipped, waves slammed into steel, metal groaned. Then a single sonar ping echoed through the air, cold and deliberate. No one could tell if it was a greeting or a warning. But everyone understood. power had spoken. On the Venezuelan ship, every gun turned toward the target. Radar spun frantically, weapons went hot. But the U.S. submarine did not move. No flares, no fire, no threats. It just stood there, in forbidden waters, like an emblem of dominance. 3 minutes stretched like 3 centuries. Both sides knew that a single mistake could set the Caribbean ablaze. And within that silence, victory was already decided without a single shot. The Venezuelan crew broke into sweat, fingers trembling on the triggers, unsure whether to fire or wait. Below, the Americans simply observed. They logged radar rotation angles, alarm delays, and reaction sequences second by second. Every piece of data became a map of psychological warfare. This confrontation wasn't to instill fear, but to measure composure. When the submarine finally sank away, the Guapiro still aimed its guns at empty water, unaware that its adversary had long since vanished. On the Guapiro's deck, no one spoke. The ocean was still, the only sound a faint metallic groan. 3 minutes of silence had turned into a complete test of morale and discipline. Below, the American sub gathered everything: reaction speeds, radio frequencies, emotional rhythm. Every number, every tone became part of a larger strategic mosaic. No weapons fired, yet the enemy's true capability was exposed. When the shadow disappeared, it left behind a void far more terrifying than any explosion. At Florida Command, officers tracked every movement. Data from the Guapiro appeared as graphs: radar activation times, reaction speed, communication delay. Everything was recorded. The Americans didn't need to see fear, they read it in the numbers. When the submarine withdrew, they knew they had already won in a war only one side realized had begun. When the Guapiro resumed its patrol route, the sea seemed calm once again. Yet on the radar screen, an empty gap lingered the spot where the Virginia had stood. No signal, no trace. Everything appeared normal except for the sharp unease in every sailor's chest. They had been watched, studied, and used as an experiment. The encounter lasted mere minutes, but Venezuela's Navy would spend months trying to understand what had really happened. The Caribbean Sea fell quiet again, but the balance had changed. The Americans didn't need to attack to send a message. One surfacing 1 minute of silence was enough to say, "We can be here whenever we choose." To allies, it was a promise. To adversaries, a warning. No explosions, no smoke, just a silence heavier than any war. The Virginia tilted slightly, its steel hull glinting under the morning sun before slowly descending. White foam spread, then vanished. 5 minutes earlier, it had been right at the Guapiro's bow. Now, the sea was empty. No engines, no wake. The Guapiro waited for another signal, but none came. Everything had disappeared, leaving only wind and waves. They didn't know that by the time their radar returned to normal, the submarine was already miles away. A visit without a farewell. The moment the sonar returned to normal, fear crept across the control room. No explosions, no engagement. Just the chilling sensation of being seen and then abandoned. The sea seemed to swallow the intruder whole, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt alive. The crew checked everything: radar, sonar, communications, all systems normal. Yet in every eye, one truth lingered. They had been watched from start to finish without ever knowing it. Hundreds of miles away in Washington, the intelligence center lit up. Encrypted data from the submarine was being decrypted, capturing every reaction, every parameter of the Guapiro. Radar activation time, turret rotation, even the crew's breathing patterns. No attack order was ever given, because the war had already been won the moment the submarine surfaced. A bloodless conflict where the side with information triumphs. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan fleet scrambled to reassert control of its own waters. Patrol routes shifted, systems recalibrated, yet the procedures remained the same: slow, rigid, predictable. The enemy had gone, but its shadow lingered. No one aboard could truly believe the waters were safe anymore. A fracture had opened not in their defenses, but in their confidence, and no amount of weaponry could seal it. Time passed, and the sea smoothed over like glass. But beneath the calm was a question with no answer. If the threat cannot be seen, can it be stopped? Those 3 silent minutes had become one of America's most valuable intelligence hauls, and for Venezuela, a quiet nightmare. The submarine had surfaced to send a message, then vanished like a ghost. And it was that disappearance, not its presence, that struck the hardest. No combat, no gunfire, just appearance, observation, withdrawal. The silent show of force left every radar operator wondering, do we truly control our seas? Across command centers, data from the encounter spread fast, analyzed, cross-checked, archived. Venezuela realized it had become a case study in power projection. The United States, meanwhile, had achieved exactly what it wanted. Proof that it could appear anywhere, anytime. As the data was finalized, a new strategic map took shape in Florida, charting Venezuela's reaction times, radar blind spots, and countermeasure weaknesses. Everything dissected to the millisecond. The operation ended without a declaration of victory, because no one outside knew it had even happened. The sea was calm again, but the meaning had changed. In modern warfare, what you don't hear is what defeats you. If your enemy can enter, observe, and vanish without a trace, who truly commands the ocean? Now, only one question remained in Caracas. How do you respond when the ghost returns? Increase patrols? Change routes? Or pretend you saw nothing? The U.S. subsurfaced not by mistake, but by design deterrence through exposure. By revealing itself for just a few minutes, it forced Venezuela to expose its entire reaction chain and its deepest fear beneath the waves. This event stood alone only in time, not in meaning. It was part of a growing pressure wave across the southern Caribbean fleets, reconnaissance planes, and nuclear submarines converging. The message was unmistakable. We can enter, observe, and leave whenever we choose. A campaign of silent deterrence, reassurance for allies, warning for rivals. In a world where power moves through signals and data, sometimes a minute of silence echoes louder than 100 cannon blasts. When the submarine surfaced, every Venezuelan radar lit up, weapons armed and ready. When it dove again, only numbers remained. Every reaction, every radio frequency, every second of panic became an asset intelligence turned into power. The Americans didn't need to fire a shot to win. They only needed to measure. In 21st century warfare, strength lies not in firepower, but in the ability to make your enemy too afraid to pull the trigger. And that is how they seized not just the sky and sea, but the mind of their opponent. All data was encrypted and transmitted to Florida along with signals from the command ship. The intelligence network expanded into a vast circulatory map of the Caribbean. The U.S. never declared war, but every move showed they were constructing a corridor of power, a hybrid of maritime security and strategic deterrence. No proclamations needed. One submarine surfacing was enough, because power doesn't need to be advertised, it only needs to be proven. From Florida to Washington and across the southern Caribbean, the signal spread like an invisible tide. Western media confirmed 8 U.S. warships were in the area, along with a special operations vessel and the carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, nearing the strategic boundary. This was no longer a patrol, it was a declaration. A new order was being written. Each time a Venezuelan radar lit up, data flowed to the U.S. Each transmission became a new tactical map. The contest no longer existed on the surface, but in the unseen space of signals and reaction time. The submarine's brief appearance was enough to sow doubt throughout Venezuela's entire command network. If a Virginia-class boat could surface that close today, where had it been yesterday? What had it heard? The question spread faster than any newswire. Meanwhile, the U.S. tightened its grip, merging counter-narcotics operations and maritime surveillance into a seamless web of soft deterrence. Under the name of regional security, they were controlling space through technology and silence, a weapon impossible to protest and impossible to avoid. Each time Venezuela went on red alert, it left behind a technical fingerprint: radar activation times, signal strength, transmission lag. The Americans collected, analyzed, and stored it all. 3 minutes of confrontation became months of usable intelligence. No provocation, no justification. They simply appeared to observe. That small event told every analyst one truth. In this century, the side that controls information controls the war. On international news, debate erupted: was this defense or intrusion? But amid political noise, the sea remained silent. The submarine had vanished, but its echo stayed behind. No wreckage, no witnesses. Only the haunting realization that safe waters could be breached at any moment. For the U.S., there was no need to declare victory, only to make their adversary look toward the horizon and wonder, are we being watched? This is the strategy of appear, then disappear. Reveal yourself to send a signal. Capture the reaction, then slip away before the enemy can respond. A calculated performance, walking the line between audacity and control. As the American submarine sank beneath the blue, the Caribbean returned to a deceptive calm. Yet from that moment on, no one would ever see the ocean the same way again. Its beauty now carried the shadow of an invisible, boundless threat. The next morning, Venezuelan sailors stood on deck, staring at the empty horizon. The sea was calm, the sky clear, but the sense of safety was gone. With a single appearance, the U.S. had redefined what sovereignty at sea meant. No firepower required, only absolute confidence. Beneath those waves, everything was being watched. And that is the true strength of the 21st century, where the most powerful force is the one that makes its enemy too afraid to strike first. The Caribbean grew quiet again, but the silence was no longer pure. It carried the echo of power. One submarine had surfaced and vanished, and the entire region understood that the boundary had shifted. This wasn't just a military test, it was a warning for a new era, where conflict requires no gunfire and silence can roar louder than bombs. In a world where fear itself is the strongest weapon, who truly holds dominance? Leave your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to uncover the secrets still hidden beneath the waves.